Excuse me. Hello, Ray. Nice to meet you. Can you hear me okay?
I can. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Good.
Great. Good to meet you. Hello, Carl. Thanks for joining us, guys. Yeah, interesting topic this evening. Are you both well?
Yes, very well. And you?
Yeah.
Very nice.
Thank you. So I want to kind of get right into it, just to let you know that we're recording. And there's been people invited this evening to speak. I have a feeling, and usually my feeling is correct, that one person isn't going to show. I mean, it might be more. If that's correct, then we'll just go with what is. I just want to check something. Can you hear this?
No.
Can't hear that.
No.
Okay. What about this?
No.
Oh, okay.
Interesting.
Oh, all right. Well,
can you do it closer to the microphone?
What about this? Now, I've just changed my sound.
Yes.
You can definitely hear that. Okay.
That I heard.
Perfect. Well, what's going to happen, and I'm just going to welcome Anna on. Anna Pavlakis is a regular on Sacred Segments. She's a shamanic healer. What's going to happen is probably going to get around 7 minutes each plus 3 minutes question time. Okay, and I know it's a little bit shorter than usual, but it's because there's
always so short.
I know. My apologies for that. I wish we had longer. It may transpire differently. Welcome, Anna. Hello. Great to see you. I had a really interesting synchronicity happen just before I joined, and I saw a Facebook post from the Ashtar Command, all about the nature of how humanity has been enslaved through societal thinking and stuff like that, and how we've been conditioned to think that we're being imprisoned, which of course isn't the case. It's just our conditioning. But I would like to discuss many aspects of the ET connection and preparing for ultimately longer and sustained contact where we can openly meet ETs. I believe that they're already here and have been here for centuries, and I'm sure you guys do. Welcome to those that have joined us. Let's start by just doing really short introductions about what you do, who you are. Do you want to go first, Ray?
Sure, absolutely. Well, my name is Ray Sette. I'm a spiritualist, psychic, astrologer, and medium. My understanding with all of this and why it is that I do what I do is to inspire everyone to recognize their own personal unique potential. I believe every one of us has an extraordinary individuality that is very much something that we can tap into and demonstrate at any point throughout our lives, and I'm here to help others to recognize and to embrace whatever that might be. I believe there's really no wrong or right with any of this. It's understanding what it is that we really love the most and to recognize we're all here for something greater. And it doesn't really matter what that is. It's that intention that we put forth in demonstrating whatever that is, especially when it comes from a place of love.
Beautiful. Okay, thank you so much. I would ask everyone to keep their introduction short, as Ray did. Carl, please go next. Yes, please. Yeah, thank you.
Hi, yes, I'm Carl Preisler. I'm retired chemical engineer, IT director, originally from Ireland. My main focus is trance mediumship. So I trained in trance mediumship at the College of Psychic Studies in London. I've been doing it now for over about 20 years. And the aim of that is to bring through philosophy and guidance, and also to facilitate healing through trance, and energy shifting and release.
Thank you, Carl. Great to have you with us. Anna, welcome. You're next. Intro, please.
Okay, I'm Anna Pavlakis, and I'm originally from New York City. I'm a bit of a wandering nomad the last few years. And I'm a shamanic healer. I work with my own modality called integrated soul healing that I've fairly recently discovered came to me through the seraphim angels, that they channeled it into me. And I've been working with this modality since it was given to me in the beginning of 2011. And I essentially work with shamanic techniques, but in my own way. And I'm also a feng shui practitioner. So what I work on is transformation both in our outer external world and our physical environment through feng shui. But feng shui is also on the inner world, in that inner dimension. And so I do that through my also through feng shui and also through the shamanic healing work and coaching and all that good stuff. That's me.
Great to have you with us. Thank you. Great to see you. Bonnie, welcome.
Hey.
Hi. Good to see you.
Hi,
Please
everybody.
introduce yourself.
Let's see. You want it short? You want a short version?
A short little intro, yeah, just to say hi and who you are.
All right. I'm Bonnie. I'm 72 years old. I live in the United States. I started having visitations from ETs after my father, who was a mechanical engineer, was visited at a launch site. He was an engineer for rockets and missiles at Thiokol Chemical Corporation in Karnak, Texas. And I was 6 or 7 during that time. And that's where my journey began. So I'm 72 now. I've had a lifelong journey with I don't want to say paranormal. I want to say the ETs, and they're very real to me. But I'm also a psychiatric nurse, and if I were my own patient, I'd have to write down she's delusional. So it's it's a hard road, the traditional medicine. So anyway, that's a little bit of my story.
Beautiful. We'll hear more from you later as well, as we will from all of you. I'm so glad you're all here. Thank you for being here and sharing your stories. I'll quickly introduce myself. My name is Alexis Constantinou. I'm a singer with a background in metaphysics. I was a one-time member of the Ethereal Society, which is a spiritual organization founded by a master of yoga called Sir George King, who was instructed to set up the Ethereal Society as an international spiritual brotherhood and metaphysical organization to raise the consciousness of the planet of Earth and to do spiritual missions in terms of giving back to the Mother Earth and preparing for natural disasters, and also ultimately raising the consciousness of humanity and preparing them for extraterrestrial contact. I have a great interest in healing and have studied alternative medicine in its many forms and continue to do so. Great to be here with you. I'm going to ask you, Ray, to go first, and then by that time, Kate will have joined us and she will go second. Kate is a lifelong ET contactee and author. So without further ado, Ray, if you wouldn't mind, and when you hear this sound that you heard before, please, you'll have 1 more minute and just finish up. Yeah?
Very good. Very good.
Okay.
So,
thank you.
sure. I believe that from when I was very young, I had initial contacts with certain types of being that we would call extraterrestrial. And I'm finding that through much of the work that I'm doing right now, especially one-on-one with clients, many have had these experiences beginning at a very, very, very young age. And I do understand that these interactions start at such an early time in our lives to help to prepare us for whatever it is we may be experiencing or demonstrated later on in our lives, even though we might not necessarily have a complete recall of these experiences. And many are coming to me asking what they can do to prepare themselves, welcome these interactions. And for me, it's a very simple suggestion. You know, the extraterrestrials, we understand that they are higher vibrational beings. And whatever it is that we can be so that we can maintain an elevated vibrational frequency, I understand that it will allow us to connect and interact with these beings. And again, a very simple suggestion is being in a place of love. I do understand there have been malevolent ones. I don't necessarily feel that there is a strong malevolent presence right now, even though I don't know we can really take that for granted that it's completely removed. However, I do believe that there's more of a greater presence of the benevolence beings, and they are beings of love. They are beings of light. And the more that we can elevate our vibrational frequency to that level, it allows them to interact with us as well. And you know, certainly in these times, it can be a very difficult task to really demonstrate. However, when there's that desire there, when we allow ourselves to just kind of step back from the craziness, if you will, of the outside world and the cacophonies that sometimes we're inundated with by the thoughts of others and the electromagnetic frequencies, we just need to have that desire to really just kind of like step back and be a little dedicated towards really maintaining that higher vibrational frequency. And by being that, I do understand that it allows them to really interact, or rather allows us to interact with them, and it welcomes these experiences in our lives. You know, I do believe that they are here to assist us, and many, which I'm sure everyone would agree, are already interacting. It may not necessarily be at a conscious level. I've had some experiences where I'm not necessarily physically, or what we would understand to be engaging in a physical interaction with these beings. I experience certain types of sensations more so during the night, which, in my understanding, for me, I am having a contact with something higher, an extraterrestrial, if you will. And I may not always understand what is taking place at that moment, but I allow myself as much as I can to just kind of clear my mind, because that also, I believe, allows us to prepare to have these interactions. As I said earlier, to step back from the cacophony of the outside world, to quiet the mind, so that we can recognize and allow ourselves to understand that we are about to engage and interact with something that is quite extraordinary, something that might even be connected with the divine, if you will, because we're all connected with divinity. You know, and they are very much part of that as well. And as I said earlier, I understand they're beings of light and love. And, you know, we're also beings of light and love. We don't always remember that, you know, and we've forgotten that part of our divinity. But I do believe in these extraordinary times that we are in right now, we are very much being reminded of these beatitudes of this human experience that we brought with us from the spiritual realms.
I couldn't agree more with everything that you said, Ray.
Thank you.
Makes a lot of sense to me, and I'm very much on the same page with everything that you said. I have a question for you.
Sure.
Welcome, Damien, that's joined us. Hi. I'll ask you to introduce yourself in a moment. My question to you, Ray, is about your galactic center media. What is that exactly? Would you tell us a little bit about that?
I actually began this it's probably been about 14 years ago now, where I was working with some individuals and we were creating material like documentaries and certain programs to just share alternative information. Unfortunately, a lot of what we've created, we've met with some difficulties, and I also understand that perhaps what we're creating, it's not yet time to share these understandings. You know, one, for example, I began creating a documentary that I lovingly entitled "The Children of Neptune," where I was sharing my understanding how the individuals who began embodying specifically in 1989, and that time frame is connected with a Uranus-Neptune cycle of experience that took place during those years, where I feel this was the first wave of these higher vibrational beings. We hear them to be crystal children, rainbow children, and they have come into this human form to really bring about some of the greatest changes on our planet. And part of what I was hoping to bring forth with this documentary was to offer my understanding of these beings, but also how they've been met with such adversity, because they are a threat. Their light is so bright, and they're such a threat to the darkness. So with that platform, we're hoping to, in these coming times, hopefully the soon times, to bring forth some of this material that we're creating.
It's fascinating. Please keep me updated. I've been told by 3, excuse me, separate psychics that I'm a crystal elder. So it's interesting to hear you talk about that. And
would you mind if I ask what year you were born?
1972, which doesn't fit in.
But no. But you know what though? What I would suggest to recognize is those born in the 60s and early 70s. We're the ones who are assisting in really ushering in and preparing these beings to demonstrate their potential.
Yeah, I think it's quite apparent for those with the eyes to see, right? For those that are looking for those kind of answers. Ray,
of course.
Thank you so much. I hope you'll stick around and be part of the discussion further once everybody's had a chance to talk. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Great to see you and great to meet you.
Yes.
Kate and Damien, thank you for joining us. I'll ask you guys to just do a very brief introduction, and then Kate will go next. Damien, do you want to introduce yourself and a little bit about you?
Hi everyone, I am Damien, sometimes otherwise known as Aminia. I work as a mystic and an artist. My background is rooted in Cometian, ancient Egyptian philosophy and Tibetan medicine and Tantra. And that was really sparked from childhood experience with the schools that I attended, that, as well as providing a conventional education, taught Advaita Vedanta, Christian philosophy, meditation, Sanskrit, etc., which sort of set me off on the path, shall we say, from an early age. Lots of experiences of what we could call higher dimensional beings, extraterrestrial intelligence, angelics, and a deep, shall we say, connection with that question that I suppose we all come to ask at some point, as it were: what am I here for? Who am I, as it were? And really how that whole framework of higher dimensional experience fits into that, as it were, how it is grounded, embodied into practical everyday life, as it were. And for myself, that's really been the experience of how do we come into a deep relationship with presence and with love and compassion, and looking at the sort of overarching theme for this gathering that you were sharing in terms of preparing for contact really that recognition of what contact is. And for my own self, it's really that depth of connection and oneness, and that deepening into the recognition of global family and cosmic family, as it were, and how we actually meet one another within true intimacy, as it were. And all of my experiences with, shall we say, higher dimensional beings, the divine, has really been ultimately rooted in that. That's really been the core essence of, shall we say, the message, as it were. How do we really come into that space of connection, authenticity, or realness, as it were. That's just a sort of brief introduction.
Great.
To myself.
Damien, lovely to meet you. I'm really glad you're here. Thank you so much, and hope to hear from you very soon. Hope you stick around. Kate, thank you for joining us. Hello, good to see you. Can you hear me okay? Can we hear you? Could you unmute, please? You're currently muted, if you wouldn't mind unmuting.
Can you hear me now?
Muted. Yes. Can you speak a little? Make sure we can hear you properly.
Yeah. Can you hear me now? Is it better?
Perfect. Yeah. Great. Just want to check you can still hear this, or everyone, right?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Good. Okay. I'm gonna set the timer for 7 minutes in a moment. Joanna from the ET Newsroom is just joining us. We can hear you. Please introduce yourself, and then I'll ask Joanna to introduce herself, and then come back to you for your segment, if that's okay. Go ahead, Kate.
Well, I got a little confused. Do you want me to start with the whole thing or just my introduction?
Just introduce yourself first, and then I'll ask Joanna to introduce herself, and then I'll come back to you.
Okay. Yeah. Because I'm on the phone, for the moment, so it's the sound is not 100%.
Okay. All right. Well, great to see you. Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, it's nice to be back again. Well, my name is Kate Thovaldsen, and I'm from Norway. I'm an ET close encounter experiences from my childhood until grown up, and has a lot of experience in many different levels when it comes to the ETs, and even been writing a book. Perhaps some of them have heard about this book before, A Hybrid Story, where it tells a lot about my close encounters and past lives and implants. I have a lot of implants in my body, and they are symmetrical placed. So someone is even joking that I'm being like a walking, talking radio antenna. So quite a short introduction this time.
Okay, great. We're going to hear more from you in a moment. Excited to speak with you, Joanna. Thank you so much for being here. Hello, how are you? Please introduce yourself and unmute, please. You're still muted, so unmute when you've got a moment. There you go.
Sorry, guys, my mouse went AWOL.
Just a quick introduction, if you would.
Yeah, I'm Joanne Summerscales. I've run the ET Newsroom, though I haven't done much this year, and I don't know whether I'm going to be changing direction, but I set up the AMASH project in 2011 and was one of the first people in the UK to really give a serious platform to the ET contactee and talk about the ramifications for all of that.
Great. Thank you, Joanna. Okay, back to you, Kate. Please tell us more about your story and why you think preparing for contact is, relevant in these times, and, your thoughts on the matter. You're muted again, so please unmute.
Yep. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, for those who don't know my story, I had my first close encounters when I was 3 years old. And I'm not sure, do you want me to tell the story or?
If you want to.
Okay. As I said, I was 3 years old and it was closer up to Christmas time. And my mother has taken me into my bedroom for the night, and I was put to bed. The bedroom was dark and I could not sleep. So I was standing there in the crib and holding the crib like this and looking out at the big windows that was there. And there was no street light or anything like that that could shine into the room or anything. And while I'm standing there, then it's like the wall on my left side become blurry. And there are this creature, little creature, gray one, without any hair or anything, that just comes in through that blurriness and into the bedroom. And then is ending up in front of me in where I'm standing in my crib. And since I'm standing in the crib, I'm also a little bit higher up from the floor. So we are almost equal. He's a tiny little bit taller than me, so we're kind of looking at each other. And of course, I was 3 years old, so I was start blah, 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 trying to talk to this creature. But he didn't say anything back. And very fast, I understand we were actually communicating between our minds. So he was giving me the feeling to see if I was okay. And he was also there to see if I was okay. And yeah, more or less that.
My apologies, I muted you by mistake. I'm so sorry. Please unmute. I have a question for you. When you've had your experiences through the years, what's been the message that you've taken away? Unmute, please. My apologies in muting you. That was a mistake on my part.
Is it good now?
Yes, it's good. Go ahead.
Yeah. What kind of message I had after that first one, or all of them in total?
I think all of them in total. Like, what is your feeling that they want to communicate?
Well, for me, they has always been like a part of my life. If I need some kind of help or feeling alone, or most of the time not even feeling anything or even thinking about them, then they have showed up.
So it's a feeling of love and connection and almost family for you. Is that right?
Yeah.
That's so interesting.
So that was kind of the feeling I was getting when I was 3 years old, because they were there to see if I was okay.
I feel like it's relevant if I just very quickly just share some of my experiences that I've had at the Theory Society, where we've been doing mantra, channeling high frequency energy to the world, which we were initiated into, sending out love energy through our hands in this prayer module which we were given. And I have become aware during that period of time when I've been in active service for humanity of extraterrestrial help. I haven't actually physically seen them in that moment, but I have had experiences where I have seen them, and I've had maybe 12 sightings that I've taken pictures of and more throughout my life. But I felt an immense power of love and just a present, just an incredible high frequency presence. Is that what you felt when you saw them and when you were with them?
Well, I cannot say that I remember that feeling, that tremendous big love that you're talking about, but a more feeling like a community feeling.
So do you believe that you are a star seed, or that you are? Oh, obviously you wrote a hybrid story, so you believe that you're part extraterrestrial, part human, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Always, even from childhood, always been different.
Do you know your origins of the planet?
Life to talk old stories or old languages that no one else were doing. So a lot of stuff that has been happening through my entire life. And another thing that I'm still have not been able to work out yet, because Norway is Norway, and that is my skull. because my skull and Travis Walton's skull, we are both abductees or having close encounters. We have the same shape on top of our head as the Star Child skull. And then they were measuring mine during under one conference in the UK, and it was actually 100% match on the top here. So that's quite interesting.
The shape of your skull.
Yeah, and the top of my skull here, yes. I'm so glad that I have here, because without my here, I will look very weird.
Do you know the planetary origin?
What?
What planet are the extraterrestrials from?
Well, the thing is that that is a very little view on things, because the universe is huge and there are thousands and thousands and millions and billions of planets with life and different races.
I mean your extraterrestrials.
Well, they are coming from different places. I was hearing Arcturus or Arcturus.
Okay. Yes, we've had a few people on with the Arcturian energy strand, and they're very much sort of helpers, planetary helpers. Does anybody have any questions for Kate before?
I'm just curious if they ever explained why they come to you. If because as you described it, the connection you seems to be one about community, and so it feels like they feel that you're part of their community. Have they ever given you any explanation as to why that might be, or why they visit you so frequently to check that you're okay, because they must be worried about you?
Yeah, no, the thing is that as humans, we have a tendency to look at the picture in a little bit too small. But if you're looking at the picture in a little bit way, like past lives and all of this, I have also been one of those in a past life. So they're not just, a lot of people are just thinking that they're just following the typical bloodline and this and things like that. But they're not only following the bloodlines, they're also following the soul line. They recognize you from one lifetime to another.
I see. Okay. Yeah. I just imagine the men should be coming to see a lot more people then.
Yeah, but it depends on what you have been doing. I guess. I don't know. I have a very relaxed relationship to them. I guess sometimes I'm feeling that people, they don't believe me if I have seen a big craft passing. When I was flying back from Bulgaria, I had a craft flying. You're kind of going opposite to each other like this. The body of that craft was the same size as the flight I was sitting in.
Mm-hmm.
And I also know that the pilot has seen them too many times before, because he not even deviates from the past.
All right. Yes.
And I could sit in that plane, I can look at it coming from a long distance, and I can actually study it. Okay, no wings, nothing. And because I had a broken trouble leg and crutches, so my phone normally always on me, but this time my helper has put it up in the top of my head.
Yeah.
Everyone was sleeping, so I could not kind of shake my neighbor to take it down. So I know that footage, that film would have been so good that everyone would have said it was fake.
Yes.
And the thing is that I have such a relaxed relationship to them and this topic, that I can easily wait till the other person wake up and tell them, okay, do you know what I just saw? It's not like I'm kind of jumping up and down and they are here.
Mm-hmm.
Because they are always, some of them has always been here, being side by side with us.
Yeah. Thank you, Kate. Hopefully you'll stick around for the rest of the discussion. Appreciate you sharing. Thank you. Bonnie, I'm going to ask you to go next if you're around. Bonnie's an artist as well as other things, and has been a regular contributor to Sacred Segments. Thank you for doing that.
Thank you. So I told you a little bit about my own, my father when I was 6 or 7. I can't remember. I'm 72. So he was an engineer, and he produced rockets and missiles. And so he was surrounded at his launch pad, and he has a Project Blue Book people came to visit us because he has a case number. It's undisclosed. It's and I'm sorry, I'm getting so frustrated with my mind here. He actually gave me a rock that was actually described the other day on Gaia TV. Somebody was describing a rock that they had that was from another planet. And so my father had given me a rock that he had during that period, and I'll describe it to you, but it was a stone that could unravel, and then you could take it and scrunch it back up and it became a stone. And I had that rock for many, many years, and it's gone. I don't know if it was stolen. I don't know what happened to it, but it's gone. And so I want to tell you about the aliens that I came encounter with that was associated with him. They were not good. They were extremely evil. They were extremely threatening, and I drew pictures of them. And that the picture that I drew of them is several years old, and I can post it here later if I can find it. But anyway, I was always frightened of aliens because of that. And the government, Project Blue Book, put a thing on my family, said, you talk about this ever, you're in trouble. You know, who knows what would happen to us. So I lived with that. But I very much had experiences more so when I got older than younger. Okay. I had a near-death experience in 2019 that I've spoken about on here before. And instead of being met by angels, I was met by ETs, and I was taken home to Orion's Belt. And I wrote a book about it. And I do a lot of because I can't remember things, but I've since my NDE, I have constant dreams and memories and conversations with the good beings. The beings in my NDE were way different than the beings that I met with my father. Okay, and I have been reversed, hypnotized, reverse hypnotized to figure out who those beings were. And I have met them in both reversals of hypnosis. And both times the little dude came running outside. He says, you get away from here. You were not invited. And was the beings that I met when I was a little child. Okay. But the beings later on in life were very, I'm not going to say the word loving, because our idea as human beings is loving like you see an ape love a child. Where alien loving is, it is a camaraderie. It is an understanding that if you're the janitor, you're the same as the doctor. Okay, there's not this hierarchy that because you're smarter or more beautiful or whatever, everybody is one and everybody is the same. Everybody gets, I mean, I don't even think they're on a salary. You know, it's not a hierarchy like ours. So the love issue is more of, I respect you. Does that make sense? And because I respect you as much as I respect myself. And that's how they're telling us that we need to be with other people before there's a real disclosure. Because we have to be able to respect other people, even if we're different, even if they disagree. We have to be able to respect them before there's any change in our humanity. And what I learned in my NDE, they don't help. They're not going to come down to help us because we're like the babies. We have to learn through our mistakes. Okay. And we honestly don't learn when somebody comes down and tells us. It's when we've made the mistake. Oh yeah, okay, I can see what I did. And then they'll say, yeah, we can help you. And even in my NDE, when I was there, and I'd ask a question and they wouldn't answer me. And the reason is the older that you get, they don't have to answer you because you can come up with the right answer, even if it's wrong. Even in my NDE, I said, I knew I was right about something and they didn't correct me. But 2 years later, I said, you know what? I was wrong during my NDE and now I'm discovering it. And they just like smile. We're so glad that you came into the knowledge by yourself. I can't remember what it was for the life of me, but I do remember the incident. And I wish I had written it down because it was important. And is there any questions?
I wouldn't mind just asking, if you don't mind, about the negative or the evil ETs. What was your experience of that energy of them? Did something happen?
Bad.
I know
Okay.
it's bad, but can you say
Yes.
what happened to?
I'll tell you what happened. I was in my bedroom, and for some reason, my closet was the portal. Okay, and so 3 or 4 very tall beings in cloaks, dark cloaks, came out. And when they were when I say tall, I'm a 6 or 7 year old, so they look gigantic, but they're bigger than people. Okay, and they came out. One of them had his finger in my face, and it was all telepathy. Okay, there was no words, and it said to me, "You open your mouth, and you're gonna regret it." Okay, and I was frozen, paralyzed, and the other 3 went down the hall towards my father's room and did whatever they do, you know. I don't know if they were coming to give him information on how to build a missile or a rocket, or were they coming to his dreams to learn what he knew? Understand? I'm not for sure what it was, but I was being threatened.
And did that happen often? I mean, were they intimidating you?
You know, it seemed like as a child they happened often, but I had to get really honest with myself and say that I only remember maybe 3 times.
And did you have anyone to speak to about that? Could you speak to your father about that kind of fairly traumatic experience?
I tried to, but you know, I gotta let my dogs out. I'm sorry. Project Blue Book came to our house right after that, and they were threatened. And so when they were threatened, my father muttered underneath his breath. So I caught many of the secrets. Okay, they didn't speak openly. My mother was more open about it because she was angry that they came to our house and threatened us. And so I didn't tell any. I tried to tell my sister, who was 5 years older, but nobody really listened, you know. And so I just thought, okay, nobody's listening, so why tell anybody, you know? And it wasn't until I got older, after my NDE, that I actually started speaking out about this, because I had already died once, and heck, I only had a little time left. Let's get out here and talk about it.
Can I say
I'm
something?
sorry. Sure.
Yeah, thank you for confirming. You know, when you were saying that when you were dying, that they were the ones showed up and take you back there. That again, that what I'm saying, that they are following you between the lines.
Yes.
When I was telling my story. So
yeah, I've heard you talk before on Gaia, and actually I wanted to speak with you sometime because your story is very, even though the story's not the same, the feelings that you have are very similar to the feelings that I have.
Yeah. Well, I'm not going to say that much bad about Gaia, but the Gaia interview is horrible because the red thread.
I didn't think it was. I didn't think it was horrible at all. I thought it was great. I loved it.
Well, the good thing that came from that is that you know, other people get to hear your story, and we get to connect with you. So it opened the door for other people to connect with you. So that's wonderful.
Right.
Even though you know nothing is perfect, right? There's always room for improvement. I'm going to have to pause you there, but hopefully there will be space For mutual discussion at the end, I would like to just say thank you, Bonnie, for sharing your story. What's going to happen next is I'm going to ask Joanna to speak, and then Damien, and then I would like Carl to speak, and then Anna, if that's okay with you, and then we'll open for discussion, general discussion. So Joanna.
Yeah, indeed. So I just prepared a few pieces because it's a very fluid time at the moment about contact, and I'll make a final comment about that because we have Miss Luna now head of organising the secrets, including UFOs, at some point. So whenever that comes out, that's going to be interesting. But what I wanted to do in preparing for contact with that in mind, I thought it might be interesting to share some of the events that might constitute already contact. And I mean, we know about these, but I thought I'd just bring them up, to the top, as it were, because I think it's fascinating. And it just reminds us that we actually do have a legacy already of contact and messages. And the messages are not so very different from each other over the years. And they're just not accepted by everyone or even known by the planet as a whole. But I thought I'd just start with some little vignettes from different stories, different people. And if that's okay with you, I'll continue. Is that okay?
Please do.
Yeah? Okay. So I'm going to start with a contact called Mike Smith, who had in 1959 or 60, because he's just got a lifelong amazing series of encounters, and he had a truly incredible meeting when he was 9 or 10 years old in those years, and it was with a family of Billy Myers might say Plejaran or Pleiades, and the tall blondes, but it was a family group, and I thought that's very interesting because how often do you hear about that? You know, that mum and dad turn up with their 2 kids in their spaceship in a remote area in a place called Wordsley, which is the West Midlands in the UK, 1959 or 60. He's not sure if he was 9 or 10 at the time. Anyway, so when they came to him, apart from asking him if there were any, he's not sure if they used the word reptilians or reptiles, and I'm saying this for a reason. They seemed a bit cautious or a bit anxious about that, and he didn't know what they meant by that, but he knew the area like he knew the back of his hand, so he said he hadn't seen anything unusual. So anyway, with that and them relaxed, they also said something very interesting, was that they had escaped some beings or masters, I can't remember if they used the word masters, who would have made slaves of them as well. So that is fascinating. Now, I don't know whether they're talking about a discrete group, because this is a 9 or 10-year-old child, so he's not asking, and this is Mike Smith, also known as Bill Brooks on the book that I've written the story of. So this meeting, basically, they come over to him, their spaceships in the distance, in the field, and they ask him, they say that the Earth is in trouble, and would he help if he could? And he said, yeah, you know, he's an excited 10-year-old boy. And he said, what do you need me to do? And they said, well, you'll know at the time. But the caveat to that, which is which turned out to be very true, sadly, was that he would be hated. Now, the hating business, it's not obvious. It's not sort of from one, well, it is from 1 or 2 parts, but it's mainly Freemasons, the secret society people, who somehow, we never did get to the end of, or to the point of how that happened, that they became this force of, if you like, evil or hatred against him, and caused him incredible suffering, and his son during some years. So whether that was to do with him sharing his story, I don't know. But anyway, to continue with this meeting with the Pleiadians, because he also did meet the reptilians about a week or so later after this event, they took him on board the craft. And when he went on board the craft, he went with the youngsters initially. There was some floating spheres around the area, and the kids said to him, I'm going to just call them kids, why don't you try and use your mind like they were to direct the object, the sphere. And so he did. He said, I did, and it worked. It went up, down, left or right. And they said, see, but he said, you know, in later life, he said, I think they did it for me because I can't do it now. Anyway, so then mum and dad, or mum took him into another room where dad was standing by, we reckon it was about a 5-foot object, and it had something that looked a bit like a spinning top, you know, the old fashioned toys. And it was under a sort of cloche, a sort of perspex dome on a plinth that was about maybe 4 foot tall, giving it about a 5-foot height. And they were speaking to him about the propulsion system, and he was observing it. And they said, would you like to go for a ride? And he said, yes, I'd love that. And there was a porthole in this room, and he watched the earth receding at some distance. And he also noticed that as he was watching the earth, and then subsequently the toy looking spinning top, once it disappeared, well, perhaps I'm telling it back to front. Once it disappeared, they took off at a rate of knots, only for mum eventually to give a look of concern and say, we have to get him back. And so they did. And when they brought him back, they said, he said, will I see you again? And they said, yes, we just looked at the clouds. And I said, and did you ever see them again? And he said, well, not to my knowledge. And I don't know what I did to help the earth. Now, I don't know whether his willingness to be there and to be around for an ailing earth, or an earth that needed support, was it or not. But it's really extraordinary. And that wasn't the first time he'd actually met the Pleiadians. He'd had an experience when he was only 5 years old. And I won't go into that one, but it's just a little vignette of a story, which is so incredible. So that message was about, essentially, in its essence, that the earth was in trouble, and would he help? Now, what else they were doing around, I'm not sure. And as a little 10-year-old, he couldn't articulate anything else. He was just a nuts and bolts kind of person in the end, and he just recalled what he said. I have to say, as a preface, that this gentleman didn't know until he was 44 that he'd even been in contact with anybody. He said the only thing I might have believed in was ghosts, because I'd seen one. I'd seen my mum. He said, but ETs, the paranormal, he said, oh no. He said, but at 44 years old, he had a download in which which was like a near-death experience, actually, because his whole life was shown to him, and all the abductions, which went right throughout his life until about 2011. And he contacted me in 2012 about his story, because he'd had a series of heart attacks and strokes, and thought he was already dying, and didn't want to die with his story untold, which he did not. So that was Mike Smith, little vignette. And then another English person, and I think it's interesting because there's so many fabulous cases in
1 minute.
other areas of the world. I've got loads for you. But around 1964, a 7-year-old Nigel Wright was holidaying with his parents in Devon, that's the UK, and just in a caravan. And late into the night, the three of them were still up and about, and Nigel was in his pajamas, and all of a sudden, the door opened of the locked caravan, mum having seen a craft outside, and 3 of these tall blonde beings came in, and they said they were human. They actually took them over to a large spacecraft sitting in the field near them, and told them that they were actually a research team, and they were looking into the DNA and familial links of colon cancer, which is really absolutely fascinating, because the dad did die of colon cancer in the end. And they showed 7-year-old Nigel a story, a kind of round the double helix there, of the links between the DNA and the family strand there. And they were researching that. And Nigel did indeed develop very, very serious life-threatening colon cancer later in life. And he lived through the many operations and everything to get him over that, which he did. And then he was asked if he would allow a surgeon to have a chat with him from Australia. And he said, oh, yes. He said, well, there's some new research, groundbreaking going on. And Nigel said, well, I can tell you now, it's probably to do with the DNA family link to these issues. And he said, how did you know? This has only just come about. He said, oh, and then he told him his story, which he had not long before had a hypnosis session, because he knew there was something, he was getting flashbacks, but not the whole thing. And that gave him the entire story. So I have plenty more to contribute if you would like to hear some of those later.
Thank
I
you.
don't want to take up too much time.
Thank you. Fascinating.
It is.
Yeah.
Wildly.
Okay. Well, if you have any questions, please direct them to Joanna via the chat. I'd like to hear from Damien now. You know, I have a few things myself that I want to say as well. But let's hear from Damien.
Hi everyone. So as several people have already mentioned, and I myself would certainly concur, contact is not something that we are preparing for, as it were. Contact is something that has been an aspect of, you know, our history and our current experience. And in that sense, you know, we just need to look to ancient civilizations, Egypt, the Mayan culture, as it were. They all speak about the influence of extraterrestrial intelligence in terms of human evolution. And the core message within that, as I briefly touched upon earlier, in terms of the experience of us moving into a space of, I suppose, global cosmic family connection, that deep sense of intimacy, and really what arises from out of that space of, I suppose, what most traditions would call awakening, for sake of a better word, in that sense, and what the vast majority of traditions would also speak to in terms of how various different awakening paths have actually come from experiences of connection with higher dimensional extraterrestrial intelligences, the divine, in that sense. And certainly that's been my own experience and connection with, we call it extraterrestrial higher dimensional intelligence, very much that nature of what people were speaking to earlier, that depth of love, that depth of opening into that space of really where we're coming out of that sense of separation, as it were, which I would say is really ultimately at the root of all of our issues within life, as it were, that sense of division, me, you, conflict that arises from out of that, our base animal instinct, survival patterning, as it were, and really how the influence of high dimensional intelligence is supporting us within that sense. It's supporting us to, at these times, to really, just thinking how to word this in this most simplistic fashion. Yeah, an answer to the question of these deeply challenging times that we live within, and really how we meet those from a depth of greater presence, love, and compassion, how we meet those from a place that isn't rooted within, I suppose we could say, all of that human mind, egoic consciousness type stuff, because evidently we've tried that and evidently it hasn't worked, or it's worked to a certain extent, as it were, but it's ultimately it's not a solution, as it were. At best, it's a band-aid, or a way of managing things, as it were. And so really we could look at it as, you know, that higher dimensional intelligence, the divine, call it what you will, coming in as a form of support in terms of really directing us to look at what is the fundamental, you know, cause of that conflict within the world, as it were. And really as Kate, you were talking about, and Bonnie, you were talking about in terms of your near-death experience, really that depth of bringing us into a place of respect, authenticity, where we are meeting one another from a place of, what is real, as it were, rather than that place of just deep delusion and confusion that we live within as the human animal, and all that genetic ancestral stuff that's going on through the system, as it were. And I would say, yeah, that would really be the core essence of thread that has bridged through all of my experiences with extraterrestrial intelligence. I too had a near-death experience when I was probably about 13 or so, as it were. And I had the experience where time flipped, as it were. So effectively, I had died and came back maybe about a minute or so beforehand. And within that experience, I would say it completely, entirely changed the trajectory of my life in many a way. For probably around about 20 or so years following that experience, many more experiences of higher dimensional intelligence, a lot of experience of being what most people would call very ungrounded or very disembodied, so sort of very open that way and up and out, which was just part of, I suppose, you could say one's unique process of creating energetic bridging and contact in a certain sense. And then that experience of, through my 30s leading up into my 40s, really became the experience of bridging that back into one's humanness. And I would say that's also been very much, in my experience, the nature of the message that has come through from connection with these higher dimensional beings. How do we really come into our humanness, as it were, and how much, just going to use the word that you used, Bonnie, respect that they have for the human experience, and how deeply in, I would say, awe they are of the human experience, as it were, and what it is to actually be human. And I certainly know that from the more, shall we say, for want of a better word, Hollywood mindset, it's a word, I'll use it for the sake of another one, we can sometimes sort of put extraterrestrial intelligence or higher dimensional intelligence on a pedestal in some way. And it's there's a sense of wanting to open up all the higher chakras and create that connection up there. And their message has been, again, for the sake of a better phrase, quite the opposite in that sense, in terms of how do we really actually come into embodiment? How do we really actually come into humanness, into connection, as it were? I think that sums it up, what I have to share for now.
Thank you, Damien. Real food for thought there. Please direct any questions to Damien in the chat. In a moment, I'm going to ask Carl to go next. And and hopefully Carl will also bring his guide Catarang through in channeled form. Before going to Carl, I'd just like to say a few things. In this topic, preparing for contact, I made a few notes, and I just want to say that we all have free will, and we have free will to choose whether we move towards our higher frequencies within ourselves or the lower frequencies to act those out. And we have a chakra system, which, you know, I think that having a balanced life means living in the physical, but we're also reaching for the spiritual at the same time. And the physical is an aspect of the spiritual. But as Bonnie said, when she had her extraterrestrial encounters, they very much wanted us to have the answers for ourselves, and they can only direct us if we ask them to. The same with, you know, spirit or source. ETs have been here since time immemorial. We have the cave paintings from all over the world showing that, you know, plus we have channelers, we have the Ra material, we have the Sette material, and as you said, Joanna, and Anna, you said the Valiant Thor question, who was a Venusian emissary. You know, there have been visitations from extraterrestrials throughout time, and our consciousness just needs to catch up to it. We have the Sette or Sette. Well, they're two different things. There's the Sette thing, which is kind of the surface public search for extraterrestrial life. It's such a joke. But the Sette, through the Disclosure Project, is much more sort of advanced and teaches people how to have extraterrestrial contact through raising their consciousness. We have organizations throughout the earth, such as the Ethereal Society and other spiritual organizations, which teach cooperative contact with the extraterrestrials. So these things are available to all of us. It's whether we choose to act on it. But channeling is a really fascinating subject, and that's why we're going to speak with Carl next. But let's be aware that we have misinformation teams operating through media. We have so much distraction through social media, film and television, like Damien said, you know, taking us away from our core self. It's designed to take us away from empowerment. You know, the American Indians and the Aborigines of Australia, the Mayans, the Norwegians, in terms of the Viking and the mystic sects of Greece, they all had that extraterrestrial contact on a permanent basis through their mystics. And you know, I'd like to also explore the Nazi whole thing about the lower astral realms. And I just want to say that I think the negative aliens are connected more with the lower astral realms, and then you have the cosmic masters and the higher extraterrestrials, which are here to help us and overlook our development. I won't go on because there's so much more, like the alien abduction and the weaponizing of ET technology when they're ultimately loving beings. Carl, I'm going to hand over to you now, but I wanted to say that. Thank you. If you could unmute, Carl, please. Thank you.
Okay. Sorry, I was building the energy.
Great.
It is so interesting to hear all the different insights, shall we say, into this vast topic of, you call, extraterrestrial life and existence. There are so many facets of creation in the universe that it is, of course, unconscionable to imagine that you are the only intelligence that exists in the entire galaxy and universe. Of course, there are many other intelligences, and of course, they have many different agendas, you could say. And we who are in spirit and who have, shall we say, had a physical incarnation on your planet, we have a different perspective too, because we are, we could say, energetic beings, but we are of the earth race, energetically also. So we are kind of in between. We can observe a little what is happening around the globe, around the planet. We can visit other dimensions as part of our spiritual evolution. And we can also interact with those different intelligences, if that is part of our, shall we say, journey or development or role that we need to play. So there is a lot that is, I think, confusing in the minds of people in the earth realm. First of all, has been touched by many people, these extraterrestrial intelligences are not here to save your planet. They are not here to rescue you from planetary damnation, but they are observing what is going on. They are observing how you care for Mother Earth. They are observing how you grow and evolve as a species. They are observing how you harness technology and the ways in which you use it. And they are, we could say, monitoring the level to which you bring the right mental framework as regards working for the common good, shall we say, into all of those activities within your planet. And so there are some organizations, galactic organizations, you might say, that have an overseeing role and have the ability to send down those to interact with you at different levels so that they may head off some detrimental event, or also that they might trigger inspiration, trigger a desire to learn more, to experience more, to overcome the cultural, shall we say, fears and barriers that people have ingrained over many generations regarding contact, as you call it. So I would not expect to see contact within quite a few lifetimes in the way that you show it in your movies, in the way in which it is a massive global event. But as has been mentioned, there are always these small little interactions, these small ways in which they ensure there are enough people who know about it, enough people who experience it, enough people who can talk about it, so that the idea is always there in conscious mind, in the consciousness of people who are ready to wake up and ready to explore and ready to look beyond the boundaries of their physical environment. And this is an important aspect of the role of those who come, as you say, visitating, because they are there to ensure that our society, this human society, does not become too inward looking, does not shoot itself in the foot in that way, that it is reminded that there are far greater things out there, far more important things. And we are still just a small insect, you could say, in the eyes of some of these very, very advanced beings. I am finished.
Thank you, Kataran. Good to have your presence with us. Does anybody have any questions?
We were thinking to invite some to come and make contact through the channel today, but it seems not a good idea after all.
I do have a comment, if nobody minds me sharing that, which is relevant, which is just on the back of what has just been said. And thank you for that. I really enjoy your communications. It's wonderful. Thank you. So are you okay with that, Alex? I don't want to take time.
Yes.
Just a couple of minutes.
Go ahead.
Okay, so I just wanted to say that Dougie Degnan, who was my co-producer or associate producer on the Experiencer album Eclectia, which I got some of the people to do little sound bites for before their music, said that when he was 5 years old, and I think that was 64, something, a lot of things have been happening late 50s and 60s, early 60s, it seems. He had this incredible spiritual experience, I'm going to call it, and where he felt, as a 5-year-old child, he could articulate this as well. He felt this incredible gnosis of knowing everything in the universe, knowing how everything worked, and it was within every cell of his body. He just understood it and knew it. And then the message that came through was that there is going to come a time, and he thinks it's now, when humanity would be given the choice to stay in the illusion or move on. Isn't that interesting? And he said, and I think we're here now. And I think we're here now. So I just wanted to share that with you, and people can see that on the Eclectia website or listen to it themselves if they are interested, and a lot more.
I think we are here in regard to there is a critical mass of people who are on the threshold, shall we say, of embracing, and not just intellectually embracing, but embracing within their whole emotional state, the knowing, the idea and the knowing of the universal family, the global family. But I still do not feel there will be much shift in the planetary consciousness in a way that will facilitate lifting those, you could say, those curtains, or lifting the mists that surround your planet from seeing all of that is out there. That will still be a while off, I feel.
Yes, we have to get rid of racism. We have to get rid of our own personal likes and dislikes and selfishness. We have to get rid of...
And our arrogance. We have to get rid of our arrogance.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Katarang. And thank you, Carl. Anna, I would like to hear from you next.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, microphone is not always the best. So, I don't know if I have a lot to share. I'm just going to sort of talk about my own sort of experiences with this whole topic, because it hasn't been particularly foremost in my life, but yet it has. Kind of in the background. So I just want to talk a little bit about that, because I haven't had like experiences like, you know, some of you have, and people that I know. But I will say that I was always very afraid of space, like outer space frightened me as a child. My mother had a book, Paralandra. I don't know if you know this book. It was a science fiction. I think it was C.S. Lewis. And it covered, I mean, the cover of it would terrify me. I would look at it and it would just freak me out. And I always, you know, people would say, oh yeah, I want to go into space. And I was always really, really afraid of it. Maybe because I had other things going on and other, you know, I think it was all past life stuff because I don't think it was anything in this life. But I will share some very interesting experience that I had in when I was living in Seville, in Spain, where I am now. And so one evening, my friend and I, we used to have these spiritual meetings in our apartment. And one night after one of the meetings, we had a very large roof terrace right outside our front door. And our guests were leaving, and they were like, I started hearing people exclaiming like, "Oh my God, oh my God." And we came out and, okay. Normally, Seville has blue sky. There very rarely are there clouds. But there was like a very low cloud cover all along the horizon. And coming down through the clouds were two beams, very large beams of yellow-orange light, hanging in the air like a number 11, just hanging there. Obviously, they coming from something that was hidden behind those clouds that were never ever there normally. And my friend and I, we could feel the energy coming from this. It was like something huge, something massive, something huge and important. Like it just felt very, very important. But those two lights, they just hung there in the air. There were not helicopters. It was obviously some craft. And what shocked me is that I never heard of anyone reporting this. No one else seemed to have ever seen it except those of us who were there at the time. And those two lights stayed hanging in the air for well over an hour. I don't know how long they'd been there before we came out and saw them, but they were well over an hour without moving. The clouds were moving in front of them a little bit, shifting, but the lights stayed just there. So, of course, I had to Google and start looking up, extraterrestrial sightings around Seville. And it turns out there's something called the Seville Triangle. And there is an Airbus factory outside, just on the outskirts of the city. And with my other vision, I know that there's a vast underground city under there where I don't know what they're building. But there's also the U.S. Air Force has a base not that far from Seville as well. So there's like all kinds of stuff going on there. It's very obvious. And there had been a lot of sightings, turns out, of all kinds of things, including someone seeing a number 11, like two beams of light, following him down the highway one night. And then I looked into it further, and it turns out that there's a parallel that goes all through Andalusia and through Granada province, where there have been a lot of sightings of craft. And it is the same parallel that Area 51 is on. So there's something about that parallel. I don't know if anybody knows anything about this. I'd be thrilled to know more about it. So that was very interesting. And then after that, we were just like looking for UFOs every night. There are a lot in Spain. You can, if you go out on a clear night, you see all kinds of interesting things. And then the other experiences that I had were in New York when I was studying with my teacher, my spiritual teacher. This was not necessarily a positive thing. There was, for a period of time, an infiltrate. I don't know if it's true now. There was an infiltration into the New York City spiritual scene of cloaked negative extraterrestrials or hybrids. I don't know what they were. My teacher said that this one guy was an Anunnaki, or an Anunnaki slave. And it was like I would look at them and there would be nothing there, no energy, like nothing. And there was another guy, and they created a lot of chaos wherever they went. They went in and they created division and chaos, and people would become very weird and suicidal. It was very, very creepy. And one thing that I noticed was that when I would meet them, they wouldn't look me in the eye. They would look at other people, but they wouldn't look me in the eye. And at first I thought, oh, whoa, what is that? And then I realized later, on some level, they knew that I knew what they were. And so that pretty much sums up my remembered experience of all of this. So I always believed in them. I never not believed in them. To me, it was as natural as believing in past lives, which I always believed. So people telling me that they weren't real made no sense to me. I was like, what are you talking about? Like, how can you think that we're alone? That is arrogance, as someone was saying earlier. That is like the height of arrogance, to think that in this vast, endless cosmos with endless universes, to think that we're the only life form out there is, to me, nonsensical. That doesn't make any sense to me. So that, yeah. And as I've gotten older, I'm less and less afraid of it. I guess, whatever traumas I had, that made me be afraid of them as when I was younger have been cleared over, with healing. But those have been my, just wanted to share that. Yep, that's it. If you're speaking, Alexis, I can't hear you.
Thank you. Thank you, Anna. Really interesting. It sounds like you encountered some dark entities or shadow people. And in my experience, using the holy violet flame of the earth.
Well, no, I did my other stuff. That they left New
Yeah,
York. They're gone.
you can psychically protect yourself, and I
No,
think
it wasn't for me. It was like for what they were trying to do in New
got you.
York, and
You
I did
your
my thing.
work
They left.
as a shamanic exorcist, I think it's important for you to have encountered those type of beings.
Oh
I
yeah,
think that was very much part of your training. And
yeah.
spiritual hygiene is something that we all need to be aware of in terms of our thoughts and our emotions being a portal for everything that we experience, and for other entities to
Mhm.
either attach themselves or repel themselves to us, because we're incredible creative forces, and we're aspects of divinity, or whatever you want to call that energy, source, or whatever it is. Um, so, in the last few minutes that we have, 6 minutes, I want to open it for just general comments, and thank you everyone for your contributions this evening. I wanted to mention the treaties with governments that the extraterrestrials supposedly have since the Nazi times, and the bell and all of that. Of course, there are like different levels of consciousness. Um, you know, any other thoughts before we close? Anything? Anybody want to say anything?
I want to just kind of touch upon what you referred to regarding spiritual hygiene. I think it's so important to really, I learned a long, long time ago the importance of keeping myself protected, clear, and grounded, because there are elements that will try to infiltrate our consciousness. And when we are clear in our being, when we're grounded, when we're anchored with the energies of the earth, we will know, we will have that discernment and to recognize what is benevolent and what may not necessarily be of the light. And it's so important for us to maintain that element of spiritual hygiene, to use that term that you use, Alex. And so many aren't always recognize how important and how significant it is to embrace those daily routines and to incorporate it very much as part of our lives on an everyday basis.
Thank you, Ray. I agree completely. I always say, when I remember, do it hourly, and if you do some kind of spiritual visualization or protective shielding, mentally or energetically,
If
it
I
will
can,
last for around 12 hours. Go ahead, Anna.
if I can add, like that to me is, thank you, Ray, because that's like the backbone of what I do. One of the major things I do is I teach spiritual hygiene. I have a whole workshop that I do pretty much every year called personal power and spiritual protection, because we do have to make it part of our daily life, daily routine, you know? And it's not to be in a state of fear. A lot of people think it's like, oh, it means that I'm living in fear. It's like, no, it's just, it's like
Awareness.
taking a shower,
Yeah.
right?
Just
Yeah,
being aware.
exactly.
Great. Any other comments or thoughts, related or unrelated? Okay. Well, I want to say let's remember our interconnectedness. You mentioned something, Anna, about the triangle in Spain and the underground stuff. I believe, to my knowledge, that ley lines is how the extraterrestrial craft travel. And of course, there's a whole grid around the Earth. You know, there's the equator, and then there's all of the ley lines. And the energetic or magnetic lines is how the craft travel along the Earth. And of course, we have interdimensional portals, and they travel through different levels. Yes, but let's remember our oneness, and let us have respect and love for each other, and hold the Earth as a conscious living entity, and have reverence and benevolence for the Earth and for its inhabitants and for the whole of creation. You know, the weaponization of ET technology is something that we have to be aware of and not contribute to. And by holding a vibration of love, we can overcome. Diana Cooper, who is the leading authority on angels in the UK, is talking about these months right now, February into March. We have the potential to be at a certain level of love energy on the planet, and the more we can shift our energy into love, we'll be at the saturation or tipping point where the dark energies can be quashed, if you like, and then we raise our frequency. We're in a period of raising our frequency. I appreciate you all so much. In closing this evening, I would like to just go around the group and say something that we're all thankful of, and I will start. I am thankful for connection. Ray, do you want to go next?
I am very grateful to have these opportunities to share with you what I have come to know as a higher truth for myself, to inspire everyone to recognize their own higher truth.
Beautiful, and I hope you come back. Hope to see you again. Thank you, Ray. Carl.
I'm grateful for community, especially this community and the community that we generate through these meetings.
Thank you so much, Carl. Great to see you. Thank you for your contribution. Damien, do you want to go next?
Grateful for connection, community, and these opportunities to just meet in a space of presence.
Beautiful. Great to meet you. So glad you're here. Thank you so much. And I hope to see more of your artwork. His artwork is beautiful. If you want to share your, if you have any links, please put them in the chat. And please don't be a stranger to Sacred Segments. Thank you, Damien. Bonnie.
Yes, I'm thankful for all of you, and I'm thankful that we have different opinions and that we can agree and disagree in a friendly and kind manner. And thank you for connection, all of you.
Isn't that wonderful? And I really enjoyed seeing you interact with your dog. It gave me such a thrill. He was so sweet, and so were you. Seeing your love and your bond together, it was so gorgeous. Great to see you always, Bonnie. Thank you for coming. Thank you for sharing your stories. See you soon. Anna.
I am grateful to be alive on our beautiful blue planet at this time. I think it's the most exciting time to be alive.
Absolutely. It's only now, right?
Mm-hmm.
Great to see you, Emma. Thank you for being here. Joanna.
Well, I'll finish on the note of communication with just a little example of how in 2014, I'm not a contactee, I don't think, or maybe I've become one somehow or other, certainly through perhaps spiritual practices and stuff over the years. But I was about to start my maiden event of a podcast in 2014 in October, and I looked up at the sky whilst my little doggy was finishing his business, and I saw the Orion's belt and said, "Oh, come on, guys, give me a sign. Let me know you can hear me." And with that, the left-hand star, point of light, zipped off to the left. The one in the middle went forward, all out of my range of vision, and the one on the right went to the right, but stayed within my field of vision whilst my jaw was on the floor. And I just said, "Thank you. Thank you." I mean, so I'm saying that communication is way beyond space and time, guys and girls. It's just in our hearts.
Love that. Love that so much. It's true. We're always communicated with signs. We just need the eyes and the heart to see. Thank you, Joanna. Syra, great to see you. Glad you could join us.
Hello.
What are you grateful for?
Well, I'm grateful that I managed to get on here for the last 10 minutes or so. I haven't been very well, as you can probably hear. So I was just grateful to kind of pick up your positive vibes, all of you.
Great to see you. Well, isn't it funny how, you know, when we don't feel well, we radiate and we look amazing, and everybody says, "Wow, you look great." Really? I don't feel it. You look great, Syra.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, for being part of this evening. It's always great to share and connect, particularly on this topic, which I'm passionate about. I've really enjoyed seeing you all and talking about this subject and hearing your stories. And I'll share the recording on the Sacred Segments Facebook page. And if you haven't joined it already, please do. The next one will be in 2 weeks' time, same time, 2 weeks on Wednesday. And if you would like to join us, we'd love to have you on. See you then, and thank you again. Have a beautiful rest of your evening.
Namaste, everyone. Many blessings.
Namaste. Thank
Bye-bye.
you. Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Woof woof to you.
They're being good now.
Good.